been lucky about it, but the win streak is now 7. As the Hawks dispatch Dallas 124 to 112. Their 7th in a row, longest current win streak in the NBA, and the longest streak for the Hawks in 4 seasons. There's reason to jump up and down if you're a Hawks fan.
The sabotage is real.
Every night there's something. You know what? Thankfully, they've moved at least a few feet that way, and we're not in danger of getting hit by a flag.
Oh, boy.
Brian Albert, Matt Whiter, good to have you with us. Mavericks made it an interesting night. They shot the ball reasonably well for most of the night. Cut it to 2 at 97-95 as they had sort of a flashback third quarter with Middleton and Klay Thompson going nuts. But then the Hawks finished the game off on what I think was a 27-17 run to pull away and get win number 7.
Yeah, the veterans, I thought they really stepped up and kept the game close, and I thought that the Hawks did a good job of not panicking. They got back to what was really getting them that lead earlier on. And the defense, I thought that they did a great job of sharing the ball. They had guys really pretty much step up. I thought it was interesting. Quinn Snyder said something in an early presser about how this team is bought in as far as the level of unselfishness, that they play for one another. We saw time and time again where Jalen Johnson probably could have had an easy bucket. He took his time, found Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yep.
You saw times where Dyson Daniels was able to probe the paint. He'd find Jalen Johnson. And I think that when you look at the thing that we've talked about as far as brand of basketball and the things that are consistent is how this team is playing for one another.
Yes, that is the way it's designed, and there's buy-in.
Yep.
And winning always helps that buy-in. You saw that tonight. A couple of numbers that stand out. Quinn Snyder often talks about the possession game. The Hawks took 10 more field goal attempts than the Mavericks tonight. That is not insignificant. And the starters really dominated. You know, Middleton and Klay Thompson came off the bench and dinged the Hawks a little bit, but the starters were plus 46 tonight.
Well, here's the thing is I think that when you talk about this team is that they want to lead with defense. You know, often in the Hawks teams we talk about that. That was one of the things. They score points, but they don't do well defensively. You've seen in that first quarter when they hung the 40 points on them, it was with their defense. Even when the Mavericks were able to cut into this league and get it down to as much as 2, Hawks were able to still extend that lead with their defense. You get out in fast break. I thought that they did a good job, especially in the gut of the game, and being able to get that lead back into double digits with their defense. You get out in transition, and you understand you got a ton of playmakers on this team. When you talk about Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, CJ McCollum, and Jalen Johnson, and when you got guys like that that get in the open floor and can create for one another, that what shows that how they're able to get the high assists and how they're able to get the quality of shots that they were able to get tonight.
29 assists tonight. That's actually a little off their league-leading average so far. Ford Key, Nickeil Alexander-Walker with a couple of big threes late.
Well, I thought that he did a great job of how he was able to manufacture offense. We often talk about him and how clutch he is, and the fact that when he's going from behind the arc, he's able to get downhill. We don't give him enough credit for his defense, but tonight I thought that he was huge as far as the 29 points, the 3 dimes, efficient from behind the arc, and then how he was able to create some offense for himself in those steals. In the gut of the game, I thought the Hawks did a great job of getting in transition. You saw a lot of times he was the trailer. His teammates did a great job of finding him, and it doesn't hurt when you get to the point where you're able to knock down shots at the pace that he was doing. He had a great game because you look 12 for 19, the 5 for 8. And again, there were times defensively where I thought that when Klay Thompson was going, he made some really good plays where he was able to blow up those screens. That was one big one when he was able to come through that screen, get his hands out there, and allow Jalen Johnson to get out for a wide open dunk.
And Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Dyson Daniels accounted for 5 of the Hawks' 8 steals in this game. Jalen Johnson, big fourth quarter, winds up with numbers right around his averages.
But here's the thing, is I thought that earlier there were other guys playing well. Jalen didn't force the issue. I thought that he did a good job of being patient. He took what the defense gave him, and there were times that high pick and roll gave him an opportunity to be able to read it. You see his night, 27 points, 8 dimes, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks, the efficient 10 for 18. And one of the things that you've seen that was carryover from the Philly game is at times he is not bailing out and just shooting a three. He's putting pressure on the defense. He's playing through contact. He's drawing fouls. And then again, as the leader of this ball club, I thought that there were 2 critical plays. He was able to get right down in the middle of the lane. He could have shot a mid-range jump shot, realized he had a Nickeil Alexander-Walker on one possession, waited for him to backside to get him going, and another time a cut for Dyson Daniels. And I think that when you have guys that are playing for one another, it becomes contagious. Guys are understanding that, hey, my number may not be called for much of the game, but if I continue to play, we're going to always find one another.
And Jalen Johnson's the all-star on this team. Didn't take the most shots, and that's okay. He had 18. That's a significant number, but it wasn't the most tonight.
But Quinn Snyder mentioned that, is that, you know, depending on how the defense is playing, you understand a player like Jalen Johnson is going to demand a lot of attention. What he does is that he does not force. He trusts his teammates. He will come off with their hedging on pick and rolls. If they're double teaming him, understanding that if those other guys get going, it's going to make it a lot easier, because now what you have to do, you can't cheat off of Nickeil Alexander-Walker or CJ McCollum. You have to honor playing on Yeka Okongwu, who can then shoot the three. And even with Dyson Daniels, they tried playing Gafford on him. Dyson didn't settle. He was able to continue to probe that paint, and then there were times where he was the playmaker setting up other players.
Yep, and he wound up with 10 assists on the night to go with 14 points, 7 boards. His defense, the Hawks defense generally on Cooper Flagg, pretty solid. Flagg's in his 3rd game back from a significant injury. Maybe wasn't great tonight, but the Hawks made life difficult for him.
They did, and I thought that that was one of the things that, you know, Dyson Daniels, we've seen it throughout the season. He has stood up to the challenge. We talked about the fact that he can go from one night guarding a Cooper Flagg to guarding a Tyrese Maxey, a Giannis Antetokounmpo, and what he does is that he studies. You've heard him often talk about, he doesn't just show up and play defense. He tries to understand and examine tendencies for certain players. You knew that tonight he was going to make life a lot difficult for Cooper Flagg. He was going to make sure that he didn't allow him to come off screens. In transition, he was going to allow him to get downhill. He was going to try to make him a player, maybe a passer, and then often with his shots, a high-volume shooter. You understand when a guy that's still working on his rhythm after being off of injuries. Sometimes if you just make him a defender, it's going to throw him off, and I thought the Hawks did a good job with that as well.
Daniels had 14 points, 10 assists, as I mentioned a moment ago. And there were some nice 2-man actions with Daniels, either as the ball handler or as the cutter.
Yeah, and here's the thing. One of the things I liked also is that he had 0 turns. We often talk about him as the primary ball handler and how he's nestled into that role. You talked about flirting with a triple-double with the 14, 10, and the 7. I like the fact that when you look at it, he did not settle. He understood that there were some times where maybe the 3 ball is not going to go. He was on the back cut. I thought that he stayed active. He did not get frustrated in the fact that, you know, they had a big on him, did a good job of being able to run that pick and roll option. He was doing a good job of being a screener and then flashing to the basket. We don't talk enough about his ability to finish. And again, him as a playmaker, nestling into your role. Again, Quinn Snyder often talks about how everyone is able to sit back and understand what their role is, and you're starring in your role. Tonight, Dyson Daniels starred in his role.
What Dyson Daniels is doing, we've talked about this before, right now, as someone who doesn't stretch the floor because of the 3-point struggles, but finds spaces within a defense to score and score efficiently is remarkable.
It is, it is.
All right, more Hawks Live coming up here. We'll hear from the head coach, Quinn Snyder, on his team streaking to the tune of 7 in a row. Nickeil with the pull-up 3, and the Hawks win it by 12.
At Georgia Natural Gas.